Hello everyone and welcome to another commented replay by Doke and Kent Game Guides. This one is going to be a 4v4 on the Gavel map. I'm once again using my Polish deck that I'm rather fond of. In the lobby here you can see we're waiting for just one more player, but this is going to be a confrontation destruction battle. First one to 8,000 victory points wins with a 50-minute time limit. Apologies that there have not been more out recently. As most of you know, I was away for the weekend. Almost set to begin here on this map though. I haven't made any changes to the Polish deck. I found it to be pretty consistent. For those who did see the first one though, the first video we have up, there is more AA in the deck now. Just had our 8th player join the room, so the host will get the game going here. And again, we're playing on the Gavel map. This one has probably been my least favorite so far since starting Wargame Airland Battle. A couple reasons. One, I still not sure I'm that fond of the spawn points in the middle of the map, and also, call me old-fashioned, but I like having the mirrored maps. But either way, here we're on the pack side. Generally, I like to go down here on Constantine, so I'm going to put up a flare saying that I'll take Constantine, and with that I usually try to get that little village there to the southeast of Constantine. Going to get rid of the FOB here. Don't really think I'll need it. And going to get some recon, tanks, infantry, a general setup. Something I've been doing actually more recently is instead of buying in squads or groups of 4, I've been trying to improve my micromanagement and just relying only on singular units at a time, at the very least at the start of the game. It's definitely helped. Something that most players out there can probably give a try to see really how much better their performance steps up when they don't use squads of 4. And actually it can be more helpful for the new player, because something I've found is if I don't notice a section of the map or where I sent some units, if I do have, say, 4 VABs carrying infantry, and they get ambushed by a tank, I'll probably end up losing everything there. But if I only send 1 at a time and such, greater opportunity to notice that they're being attacked, and then to only lose 1 infantry vehicle instead of 4 infantry vehicles. I have the lovely T-55s, which, as most of you know, or who are playing Airland Battle Beta right now, are incredibly wonderful for their ability to cost 20 activation points and, well, really have a pretty decent gun. Having a little bit of trouble here deploying these units with so much stuff layered on top of them. Getting the support ready. And again, if you've seen my other videos, you've probably noticed I'm not that big into the 4-on-4s. And generally I prefer quicker battles with lower point limits. This one being at 8,000 is theoretically going to last 4 times as long as the Highway to Oslo maps that I have up there. What I'm doing here also is just putting out some arty. With these larger maps with 3v3s, 4v4s, I find that it is good to start with at least a couple arty, because when you're making offensive maneuvers, there's likely going to be much more entrenched defensive positions. There's going to be more saturation of your opponent. So having that artillery support, whether it be through providing smoke cover or panicking and stunning your opponent, can really be a lot more useful. And of course, with these larger maps, you have more points at the start, so that helps as well. You'll see there on the right that me, who obviously forgot to type in their name, is taking the right. And then we have, let's see here, Ham taking the middle. And we're about to get started. I point out here in chat that Elena will be key. For most people who have played this map, you realize this as well, that Elena really has an advantage to the NATO side, simply because of the tree line it has in the middle. We'll take a look at that later. But the battle's about to begin here. If you haven't seen my previous videos as well, you'll notice that as I start, group up everything that I have there up at the road, select them all as one unit, and then go back and individually tell the units where to go, so this way they all get there as quickly as possible. New trick as well, I don't demonstrate it here in this one, but something a friend suggested to me is that if the first thing you do during the battle is highlight all those units that you have rushing towards one of the flanks or the position that you're covering, and if you use hotkeys to group them to a keybind, so for example, group those all to key number 1, then what you'll see is, okay, I'm moving my command vehicle, but then instead of having to come back and manually reselect them, you just hit the 1 key. One of those stupid things that, well, it seems obvious, but it really isn't something that gets passed down to most players. I like to get the recon up there pretty quick as well, to be able to see exactly where my opponent's going. The AA is also very important. I've started layering my AA back actually a little further from the front lines, and it's been working well so far. I haven't always had them right up next to the tanks or the infantry or my main defensive lines. I've actually been putting them back a little further, and this can be effective when your opponent's trying to gain complete air superiority, but please note that if your opponent's using a bomber like, say, the Superintendent, it has a guided missile that just locks, launches, and then immediately evacs by itself. With this strategy, your AA is not going to be able to get those type of bombers that are just release and fly away. Launch and forget, I believe, would be the technical term. Getting the T-55s up there as well. Another thing to be careful on that left side there in Constantine is vehicles cannot go through the terrain that is all the way to the left. You can't have an infantry vehicle or a tank go through there because of the terrain. But remember, with Airland Battle, infantry can scale over all that terrain. It's not a problem for them. So it's usually a good idea to take an infantry unit and to plop it down there on some of that heavier terrain. And actually, if you look, the Black Hawks there, that's very well probably what my opponent did. Dropped off 2 units there to my left flank and dropped 2 into that tree line north of Constantine. When you're securing the left flank, there are 2 main points that you want to get, and that is this village and this tree line where you see my recon and T-55s going. That is one key area to cover, because you're able then to protect your right flank for that spawn point in case your opponent gets it, and also the tree line due north of the sector. So now that I have Constantine, that's a bit of a relief. Pretty easy to get, though. I've never really seen anybody rush there quick enough. You see over there on the left, I'm deploying my infantry to cover that, to make sure nobody sneaks up on me. I think when I was playing this, I actually didn't see the Black Hawks on the left. Maybe I just didn't notice them, because that does catch me off guard. On the right here, checking out Elena. So far it seems to be going good. They haven't found any enemy units yet on that side. And at this point, I'm just moving up to that forest line. I have 2 groups of T-55s and a recon heading up there. The T-55s will reach it first. Probably should have sent a recon ahead of it, but currently it's not the end of the world if you send tanks into a forest. Not always recommend it by any means, but for example, right there they encounter light infantrymen, or light riflemen, excuse me. That's not going to be much of an issue for the T-55s. Unloading the infantry there, and then I'm going to move them to where the infantry vehicle cannot go. Trying to hurry my recon up along there. Alright, and looks like you have the light rifleman there. And the nice thing too is that he conveniently put it right on the forest line, so my tanks actually didn't even have to go to the forest where they lose a lot of their mobility and can be more easily flanked. But of course, if you don't put your units at the tree line, then you can't shoot them as they approach over an open field. So it's a little bit of a toss-up of, do you want to be able to shoot at them as they approach your position, or do you want to be able to draw them into the forest and attack them on the sides and when they're less mobile? If he had known that I only had T-55s coming up and not any recon or not any infantry in front of it, he should have micromanaged to bring that infantry back into the forest. It would have been much more helpful for him. Because right now you can see I'm not even fighting anybody, but I'm detracked and on rough ground, so my tanks just can't move. and that's a bit of a problem. The recon's finally caught up though, so it looks like for the moment I've secured this forest, and it's pretty important to get that because it allows you to, one, be able to recon out when your opponent's crossing the bridge north of Constantine, and also it allows you a position to launch a counter-offensive in the middle of the map if your opponent tries pushing up the middle. It's pretty easy to move your units down from that forest there. I'm putting additional recon there to the left flank, just because I did notice that they got those light riflemen there pretty quickly. I have a feeling that there's some more stuff maybe on the left flank. Have some infantry moving up there to support and reinforce the position. Command vehicle, actually, I don't think I positioned it properly because it wasn't fully in the forest there, and if he did have a recon up there, he'd immediately be able to spot it. So I'm just backing him up there a little bit into the forest. So Constantine is once again secure. On the right-hand side here, actually doing pretty well with Elena. They haven't been able to capture it yet. And over here, I'm moving the recon up even further, and I'm perfectly content keeping the rest of those units in the dead middle of the forest. Over there, my timing was perfect. You can see as he tries to bring up some infantry carriers to the forest, and I'm going to try to take them out before he can unload them. He also has 60 U.S. Marines there, which is... So take out one of the LVTPs. I use one of my infantry carriers. Use the second infantry carrier, the LVTP stunned. At this point, I feel like I should get some more guys up there, so I actually bring in a logistics to the spawn point, and then I'll be able to reinforce directly into that forest. His U.S. Marines, I don't know why he disembarked them so early, because now my ally can just attack them as they cross the open field, and they have no defense to that. My infantry are now finished with the LVTPs that he had in the forest, so I start using my small arms fire to try to thin down the Marines. Ultimately, I'm going to lose that 40 Marines against 6 infantry, so I stand a chance. But then, look at that, napalm. Morally, I felt a little wrong doing that. Just dropping that much chaos out there. But at this point, they're stunned, unable to fire. It's 3 against 17, 2 against 15. And, yeah, that's why those Su-70s are just so wonderful. My command vehicle is almost there in position, so I'll be able to reinforce now directly to that location. I actually should have waited a minute, because they could have just spawned right out there, but I don't know if it'll go in time. On my left, I hear that there are some light riflemen, so just as I thought, he tried making a move up my left flank. For some reason, I tried getting my infantry vehicle to engage them from there, but I should have known it would be able to cross that terrain. Either way, it looks like my infantry is going to take it out without any assistance. Yep, they're routing now. Try to get them to follow. But just to be sure, I reinforce that with another infantry vehicle. The infantry I called up there to guard the new spawn point is on its way. And the fire's still burning. Oh, looks like there's some Marines left up there. Yep, 1 U.S. Marine left out of all of that. How crazy is that? Again, don't know why I didn't keep those in the infantry vehicles. And the U.S. Marine's gone. I always kind of feel bad on these maps when I capture this spawn point here, because if your allies don't know you took it, and if they're not paying attention to where they're spawning things, next thing you know, they may be spawning, say, some T-80Us right there, completely exposed, and not even realize that's where they're coming from. But all around, looks like all the fronts are pretty stable. It's been a rather defensive game. We have a 905 to 309 point lead at the moment. Again, going up to 8,000. Still got quite a ways to go. There's a lot that can change here.
co czekacie? Na śniadanko do łóżeczka?
Got some more infantry going up there. And in the middle of the map, it looks like there's some action that I'm not noticing. But hopefully I'll turn my attention over there in a moment. Now, on this particular map, one of the reasons I think I like Constantine is it's next to impossible for your opponent to take it from you once you're fortified. I mean, crossing that bridge can be utterly chaotic for them, and they just have to cross a huge open field, and at pretty much all times you can hit them on their flanks if you have units at the ready. So now I'm starting to look over here towards the center right, and I'm trying to examine exactly where I can help out my team now that Constantine is fortified, because there's practically no opportunity for me to advance on my side due to how that terrain is laid out. If you look, that is impassable to most vehicles there on that ridge. So either you go around on the road, you can't cross over there in the forest unless you disembark your infantry, which gets very dangerous, and his command vehicle is probably all the way back in the rear protected, and you'd have to cross that huge open field to be able to get it. You could probably get him to move it, but whether or not you could hold it, and whether or not the offensive would be successful is a different story. I've yet to see anybody conduct a successful push on that side. Over here, I bring in my arty and I try to help him out a little bit, because it looked like he was trying to make a push. I launched some smoke over in that direction, and he actually fares much better than I thought he would do. He probably didn't even need the smoke, but I sent it regardless. They have some air support coming in here. FA Hornets. Yeah. And now my smoke's arriving. Oh boy, I'm really bringing in the bombers now. I bring in my MiGs. The problem with those super incarnates, as you can see, is they launch their missiles and they're already gone. Pretty much the only thing that can get them then is frontline AA, where they have them scouted long before they have to release their missiles. But it looks like the offensive was successful there in Elena. He's probably going to maintain that force line. At this point, I think I make the decision that on the right-hand side is where I should offer my assistance. I'm actually just going to leave the MiGs there to make sure there are no other threats that come in. And now I'm tempted to do another napalm strike, and I'm launching some more smoke over there. Lost one of my MiGs, it looks like, probably from AA. In the middle here, again, they're using a lot of U.S. Marines, it looks like. And on the right-hand side, they're trying to counter this with quite the artillery barrage. Left side still looking peaceful, all quiet on the western front. Still making sure, though, that I have plenty of defenses on the left-hand side there. It really is one of the only ways that you can dislodge an opponent here, is by moving up that left flank and catching it. So, as you can see, we took Elena. Huge success for us there. I just hope my smoke helped and not hurt, but don't quite know for sure. Now I'm bringing in a couple groups of T-55s. Gonna bring in some infantry, and of course gonna bring in some anti-air, because they seem quite keen on countering the offensive with anti-air. Get some infrared missiles and radar-based missiles, just in case they try to counter those. And actually it looks like they're just south of center. They're making a bit of a push. They deployed some smoke. I have my recon here, kind of in the middle, and I decide to refortify that force there, and it's good timing too, because now they're bringing up some leopards there from the rear. As you can see, their smoke screen pretty much protects their advance from the units there on the left, but they're still vulnerable to the T-64s once they get there in range. So I decided to do another artillery barrage, this time not with smoke, but with actual live rounds. Look how well that smoke worked. All those tanks snuck up there, and he didn't see them until just now. Thankfully, though, he had plenty of anti-tank guided missiles there in that building. I've got my little offensive group there, ready to make a push. And I'm gonna help him secure that forest. Here in the middle, I was getting a little worried I might have to divert and actually help him defend against this, but he handles this normally confidently. He's got a T-80 coming up there. Again, that building that he has those anti-tank guided missiles in is going to be crucial. He just gets them bogged down. And really, in my opinion, what he should have done is launch more smoke and get them even closer. I don't think he got close enough with those tanks there in the rear. You can see now he's actually pulling some of them back. Got my MiG here, trying to count him. He's got his Tomcat out, which, those Tomcats are just nasty to try to take out. You get a hit on it, but it doesn't take it down. His AA kills my MiG. Launch my napalm strike. I actually missed a little bit there, but at the very least it prevents him from moving anywhere on the plane. My ally clearly has this forest here secured, so I decided I'm going to advance up to the next tree line. I think he has some units in there, but I'm not entirely sure at this point. I'll have some eyes on it in just a moment. The smoke will be pretty critical in making sure I survive long enough to get up there. And he does have some units. This is actually where I make a real mistake. As you can see, I don't notice my AA is moving up with the rest of my units. And they're going to get picked off here by these tanks in the forest. Yep. Looks like there goes one, there goes the second. It's just a mess. I thought he had the entire force secured, but he obviously did not. And I didn't micromanage that well enough. Knock out one of them, but there's quite a few more forces here than I thought. My ally uses his Buratino there to scare away the martyrs that were approaching on the ridgeline. Once my T-72s got close, they made quick work of the opposing forces. There's a couple more left, one gone. Look how beautiful that is. Another one gonna go down here. I want to get rid of this one as quickly as possible, so that way I can get all my tanks facing these advancing on the left. They make a pretty good defensive here, and again you can see I don't get my AA out of the way in time. It's just sitting there right in front of those tanks, and I don't even saw him there, knocked one of them out. But he just made a mess of the situation by leaving the rear end of the tanks completely exposed to my main force there in the forest. If he would have just instead moved in towards the center of the forest, he could have taken out most of our defenses there without a problem. But look how quickly those tanks go down when we hit him on the side. Anyone who's watched the other videos that I've put up obviously knows that that is something I focus on a lot with this, is that you can try to take out an Abrams or whatever you want from the front, but it's going to take you a dozen shots. If you hit it from the side once, you're golden. Again, he's got those bombers in, and they are just nasty to deal with. And I've lost all my AA to counter them, and my MiGs to the Tomcat. Martyrs there look like they're routing or panicking, and they're drawing back. I have my artillery launch another smoke barrage up there, and then I'm going to call in some reinforcements, calling in some more AA, and this time I'm just going to leave them back here further, going back to my philosophy of not having them on the front lines, so that way things like that don't happen. There's the smoke coming in. I'll be moving up my units in just a moment, getting some infantry up there ready, and charge. I actually think coming up here he's going to counter my advance by moving up some units to the ridge line on my left flank. Yeah, it looks like there's an AMX-40 coming up to meet me. And that'll be a little difficult. Here in the middle, lost a little bit of control. Looks like my infantry didn't make it up to the forest. So I decided to reinforce it with some T-55s, just something with a little heavier offensive capability. You can see there, his tanks are hitting me, and now on the flank I turn their attention to the left. And we have ourselves quite the tank battle going on. The T-55s are just beautiful. We have 4 tanks with an above average gun sitting in position. They don't need a stabilizer, just adding that extra firepower. And there they go, but his superintendent, of course, comes in. And... wow, actually, I think he lost me in the smoke 'cause he didn't take out a single one of my guys. That was pretty nice. At this point, I move up my artillery a little bit closer because they're just barely out of range. Pull in some more logistics for them. And now that I've made it to this tree line, I get a look at what he has here in the city. I should have had some more smoke pop before I made this. And I don't know why I went after the MD Jupiters first. Maybe I thought they were full or something. But now I have to turn my attention back to the left because he has a couple Milans on the side. And their anti-tank guided missiles can wreak havoc. Thankfully, he targets the T-55s in the back. He does get a couple of them. I let go of my infantry there in the tree line, decided it's time to pull back. I'll leave the infantry there because his long-range anti-tank guided missiles can't hit that infantry. And that way I have a forward position there that I can scout his units from. At this point, we now have a point lead of 4,500 to 3,300. So that's what we like to see. We're starting to develop a bit of a gap there between the two sides. He continues to barrage the forest where he knows I have, and my allies have a lot of infantry hidden in it, but it's such a wide area of effect that it really doesn't do that much. He pulls up ERC 90 recon over there on the left. I used to love playing against the French decks because their armor's so thin, but at the same time I love playing with them because their guns can be so potent. In the forest there I still have eyes, and I notice he's moving up 5 tanks forward to my position, so I try to pull up my T-72s. My T-55s, I was going to have them come up there on the ridge, but instead I have to turn them around to focus on the 8 tanks coming at me, not even 5. And they're Leopard 1A4s against T-55s. I'm going to lose that battle, and I should have recognized that a lot earlier than I did. There goes that group. And now I have these that are detracked in the forest, so I actually only have one of them up there firing at the Leopards. And my T-72s seem to have stopped moving forward, which is unfortunate. Another artillery barrage into the forest. Perfect timing by him to hopefully stun anything in there long enough for him to move up his tanks. Look at all those missiles coming from my T-55s. It's actually a little bit of overkill. Thankfully, because the one was detracted in the forest, it didn't actually get hit. Yeah, overall I just got overwhelmed there on the right hand side. Should have had probably a little bit more AA support and managed it better. But it really is a tough position because you can move forward, say, to that next tree line where I have my infantry, and all your opponent has to do is out of the spawn point that's just a couple 100 meters away, spawn some tanks or anti-tank guided missiles to hit you right in the flanks moving towards the town. If you try to counter them on their left, then you're exposed to their anti-tank guided missiles or an advance of tanks like they were doing there. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like this map that much is over here on the right hand side, Elena's in such a position as I just explained, and if you look over on the left hand side, it's the exact same thing. If the opponent tries to advance in the middle, we have Charlie there that we can just spawn as much as we want and hit him right in the flank. Got some T-72s up there on the ridge. I brought some more units in the middle to try to help out. And I was feeling pretty confident that the frontal armor of the T-72s could withstand a couple of the anti-tank guided missiles, but I severely underestimated how much they had up there. If you look at that, that's probably 12 individual units there that were firing on my T-72s. There's just too many of them. I did call in some smoke, but too little, too late. Took a little too long for those shells to reach their target. I'm going to move up these T-72s in hope that I can pick off the martyrs there in the tree line without the left-hand side there being able to see me. Moving up the T-72s. Content with the right side where it's at. We have Elena. By having Elena, we really do have the income advantage right now. And as long as we keep that, we should be happy. Really pushing up there in the center. It's just trying to put pressure on your opponent is really what it is. When I just manage that T-72s, they get hit. You can see just barely on the right-hand side. And it's a choice. Do you wait for the smoke to come, cloud the Leopards from hitting you, or do you go to the right to take out the anti-tank guided missiles? Call in some T-55s, some cheaper units to ultimately make a push up there in the center once I have a better barrage loaded. On my right-hand side, he's pulling up those eight tanks again, and I'm feeling pretty confident he's going to push them all the way up, because if you look on the left as well, he's moving a lot of his stuff around there. And if he moves those 8 tanks up and attacks from the ridge line there, it's going to be very, very difficult to defend against that. And heck, just sitting there looking at those advance across the field looks intimidating. Infantry start to engage them. They don't last long at all, though. I bring up some anti-tank guided missiles, some PKR faggots to fire at them. The entire first salvo misses. That was pretty disappointing. Call in some artillery, try to stun or panic these guys. Just like I thought, on the left-hand side, you can see he's got some tanks advancing and hitting me on the side. He's doing a great job there getting rid of all the infantry I have in the forest, and I haven't taken out any of the Leopards, which are a great tank. I shouldn't even be moving that T-55 forward there. He's just going to get killed, so I decide to reverse him back. At this point, I decide I'm just going to wait for him to get into the forest, and then I'll flank him with the T-72s. So at this point, I'm just perfectly content letting him come in there. My allies' infantry can help me, where the infantry I have in there can help me. And then by positioning the T-72s there to the right flank, I'm hoping I can catch them as they advance. I did knock out 2 of them there from the T-72s, so already it seems to be working. There's another one gone. I've lost eyes on them, but I know they're coming, so I unload the infantry. And it's funny, if you look at the left-hand side of the mini-map, you haven't seen blue there since the first 5 minutes, so it's quite obvious there's nothing happening there. The T-55s, I'm still bringing up them to the center. And the reason for this is I could bring them down there to the forest, because they're obviously making a push there, but I know that if I keep those T-55s there along on the ridgeline on the left, if they do move up to try to flank me in the forest, these guys can, well, counterattack their flanking. Over here on the left, my teammates are making a push with some T-72s and T-55s. I feel kind of bad I didn't notice it earlier, otherwise I would have tried to help out more. But they're quite entrenched there in the forest, as you can see. It's starting to highlight some of their units in there. Opponent brings in some Harriers, another air and Fake Hornets, knocking out the T-72s as they sit there in the middle of the field. And I'm shocked on the right that they have not advanced yet. Overall, the battle's going pretty well. Again, our point advantage 6,300 to 5,000. Pretty happy with that. Personally, if you look at it, I'm not doing that great. Going ham there in the middle has absolutely won this game for us, and we'll look at that later after the battle's done as well. This is where it gets tough, is T-72s, I bring them over here to hit the flanks of the AMX-40, and it worked. There's a 100-point tank gone, just like that. And at the same time, the Leopards that are just north of the T-72s, as soon as they see the T-72s, they knock them out. So I should have kept the T-72s further off to the side and waited until they were more engaged to deploy them. A little worried at this point, because right now I don't have that much armor up here to take care of them. So I actually called in some cheap Polish vehicles, the Konkurs. Great anti-tank weapons, very, very cheap to produce as well. So I'm hoping I can get them on the side of the Leopards here and take some of them out. So you can see there goes one, but really need to be killing more than just one at a time there. I lose a couple, lose another one. And ultimately what happened here was, instead of being able to hit the side of the Leopards, I hit the front of them. Looks like my infantry took out one of the leopards. There's Conqueror's taking out another one. And Conqueror's taking out the last one. Ultimately, they did their job. If I recall correctly, they cost 25, 35 points to bring in, whereas the leopards reached 55 points. So either a draw or I won that battle there. On the left-hand side, I see he's trying to move some tanks up there from his reinforcement point. So I try to bring in my T-55s. And this is just a small little skirmish. It's nothing I had high hopes for, but I thought if I could get in range of them as they're crossing that field and as they make their way up that hill, I'd be able to knock a couple of them out and draw the T-55s back. Since they don't have the stabilizers or anything, they have to, or excuse me, since they have the bad stabilizers and such, I want them to be stationary as they shoot. And I thought this was kind of interesting, because I mean, T-55s are some very cheap tanks, but look at all the hits they're taking there. And this really surprised me upon reflection, just how well they performed. And at this point, I'm sitting there going, okay, they're obviously not going to try to make their way up as I'm sitting there. Let's pull them back. Count myself lucky I didn't lose any of them. 8 versus 2, and somehow I come out of that with my 40 points of tanks. Right-hand side there, still things looking pretty stable. Again, shocked by how slowly they advanced through L and up. I think I'm calling in some more smoke there with the artillery, because it looks like my teammates are pulling up some T-80s, maybe trying to make a push there. So I decided to try to bring in my reinforcements, but my teammate pulls back. So guess I just noticed too late that he was moving up there. AMX-40 got drawn out. Here, I'm sitting here crossing my fingers. Come on, get him. Get him, just one missile. But as it turns out, it's away. Still launch some more smoke, just in case he does change his mind about moving up. And I don't know what I was doing here with my AA. Maybe I just accidentally thought it was an A or something like that, but I do end up pulling him back in time. And you can just see how effective it is having that spawn point in the middle of the map. Look how quickly he gets reinforcements out there and starts a counteroffensive. Just brand new squads of 4 of tanks coming out of there. Some more artillery coming in. And what I'm trying to do here is, it's quite obvious my ally's not going to make a full-out push towards the opponent, but by continuing to lay smoke down, I'm preventing all of my opponent's anti-tank guided missiles that are sitting back there in the forest from contributing to the fight. So that means it's T-80s against these KPZs, and the T-80s will win that fight pretty much every day. So that was the whole point of continuing to add smoke over there to that side. He actually ended up moving up the Jaguars to try to get some shots off of the T-80s. So maybe I should have done the smoke a little further up. KPZ's completely taken out. I think he's only lost 1 T-80 from that push. And at that point, we won the game. My performance, on a personal note, was not that great. I didn't even have more kills than losses. If I can defend myself a little bit, though, I would put that on trying to help out on the right flank. Thanks again, everyone, for watching another one of our great clips here. Again, my apologies about the lack of them lately, but you'll see more going up over the next days. Hope you all have good fights out there on the battlefield, and thanks again for watching.